The story of Robert the doll dates back to the early 1900s when a young boy named Eugene Robert Otto was given a one-of-a-kind handmade doll by a servant that worked for his parents in his home. Eugene, who everyone called Gene, named the doll Robert and quickly became attached to his new friend. Robert the doll is a little boy in a sailor suit. His careworn face is only vaguely human. His nub of a nose looks like a pair of pinholes. He is covered in brown nicks, like scars. His eyes are beady and black. He wears a malevolent smirk. In his lap he's holding his own toy. Here are some other things that people also agree is true about Robert. That he's haunted and that he has caused car accidents, broken bones, job loss, divorce and other misfortunes. Robert is now 117 years old and lives at the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida, in a new display case which was recently donated by someone who is a fan of Robert's. He is placed behind filtering glass to preserve the artifact. The museum still gets regular reports of evils attributed to the doll. Before Robert came to the museum in 1994, he was the property of Robert Eugene Otto, an eccentric artist and member of a prominent Key West family. Yes, the doll and the owner had the same name, but the boy answered to Gene. Otto's relationship with the doll continued into adulthood. What people really remember is what they would probably term as an unhealthy relationship with the doll. He brought it everywhere. He talked about it in the first person as if he weren't a doll, he was Robert. As in he is a live entity. After some digging, the museum traced Robert's origins to the Steiff Company, the same toy maker that first manufactured a teddy bear in honor of Theodore Roosevelt. Robert was most likely never intended to be sold as a toy. A Steiff historian told the museum that Robert was probably part of a set fabricated for a window display of clowns or jesters. According to legend, young Otto began to blame mishaps on the doll. While this could have been laughed off as childish storytelling, adults also started noticing odd occurrences, especially as Otto and Robert grew older. While he seemed like an ordinary cloth doll, it wasn't long before Robert was involved in strange and somewhat terrifying events. The first hint that something out of the ordinary was happening was one night when Gene, who was only 10 years old, awoke to find Robert the doll sitting at the end of his bed staring at him. Moments later his mother was awakened by his screams for help and the sounds of furniture being overturned in her son's bedroom. Gene cried for help, begging his mother to rescue him. When she finally was able to wrench the locked door open, she saw poor Gene curled up in fear on his bed, his room in shambles and Robert the doll sitting at the foot of the bed. As an adult, Otto lived in a stately home he called the Artist House, where Robert could be seen positioned at the upstairs window. Schoolchildren swore that he would appear and reappear, and they avoided the house. Myrtle Reuter purchased the Artist House after Otto's death in 1974, and also became Robert's new caretaker. Visitors swore they heard footsteps in the attic and giggling. Some claimed Robert's expression changed when anyone badmouthed Otto in his presence. Reuter said Robert would move around the house on his own, and after 20 years of antics, she donated him to the museum. But far from banishing Robert to obscurity, his arrival at the museum marked a turning point for the doll. Since Robert arrived, visitors have flocked to the museum to get a look at the mischievous toy. At some point, it became known that Robert had a sweet tooth, so people leave and send him candy. Once he received a box containing 8 bags of peppermints, a card, and no return address. Exercising caution, the museum staff does not consume treats sent to Robert. Guests leave him sweets, money and, occasionally, joints. It's completely inappropriate, says Convertito. We are still a museum. Convertito is Robert's caretaker. Once a year she administers a checkup, taking him out of the case and weighing him to assess whether the humid Florida weather has adversely affected his straw-filled body. She is also his proxy, receiving and reading all his emails and letters and running his social media feeds. And they can and do write to him. He gets probably 1 to 3 letters every day. But they aren't typical fan letters, they're often apologies. Many visitors attribute post-visit misfortunes to failing to respect Robert, or even openly disrespecting him, and they write begging forgiveness. Others ask him for advice, or to hex those who have wronged them. He has appeared on TV shows. He has had his aura photographed. He is a stop on a ghost tour. And he's inspired a horror movie. He has a Wikipedia entry and social media accounts. Fans can buy Robert replicas, books, coasters and T-shirts, and the most adventurous can even volunteer to be locked in with Robert after dark. To learn more about Robert the Doll, you can visit him at the East Martello Museum.